in, it's also unique to each individual, right? I became a meditator. In fact, I would spend a couple hours a day meditating and also reading inspiring books that I could contemplate and then take that into my meditation. And my intuition kind of grew out of that. But then what happened when I was going through this divorce and I was shattered, the intuition like expanded beyond what I ever knew, because all of a sudden I didn't have any barriers holding me back, right? I think I was probably really intuitive, not psychic. I wouldn't say I'm psychic, but intuitive as a kid. And I think this is true for everybody.
Yes.
You know, you can hear when you're little, and then the voices around you, the parents or the family or the siblings, start that indoctrination of, you got to be like everybody else, don't stand out. Funny, I was born with red hair, you know. Mm-hmm. It's like I always stood out like a sore thumb. And then with this intuitive thing as a kid, you know, my parents didn't realize, but there was a bit of, you know, don't act like that. Don't be so sensitive, you know, just that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then the receiving part for me comes when I listen, right? It comes when I sit down to meditate. It comes when I go out of my home and keep my eyes and ears open and my heart open. And then the people I need to talk to are right there, or the things I need to see are right there. And that's when you begin to see the magnificence of the world. You know, in my book, Kimberly, I did a riff on the word empower. And, you know, E stands for esteem and M stands for movement. Well, when I got to W, I realized W was about wonder and about going outside and learning again how to be that innocent person, right? That just sees. I was sitting outside this morning and the clouds up here in Ventura were like kind of like the background you have there. They were amazing. And you know, it looked like a painting to me. I'm very much into art, and it looked like a painting, except that it was just how the universe presented itself this morning. And I just had this amazing sense of wonder and gratitude just watching the clouds this morning. Mm-hmm. And that's receiving.
Yes, that is receiving. And I love that, because I think the same way. When I'm driving and I look up at the sky, I say, oh, God made a new picture again today. Mm-hmm. Beautiful picture. It's different than yesterday. It's always different colors.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And that wonder is so important, because I think people get so caught up in life, in the routine, in it's like the old saying, stop to smell the roses, stop to smell the flowers, and stop to really wonder.
Yeah. And what happens, I think, when we do that is when we stop, we do connect, you know, either heart to heart with an individual or heart to the highest, you know, the heart opens so that the highest good can flow into our lives. And that to me is a piece of learning how you then bring your highest desires down through you into life, because the universe is always circling and expressing by means of us. And when we can be open and receptive, we get more good, and life gets more better.
Yes. And that just affects everyone around us. I mean,
oh yeah.
You know, I'm sure that has affected your son. And even when you were going through that with your marriage and divorce, I'm sure there was more of a calmness there than there would have been if you weren't actually working on yourself.
Well, it's interesting because when I had friends, but nobody really who had gone through divorce. Okay, maybe one friend. And when I was going through divorce, all of a sudden these women showed up in my life who had gone through divorce. And I remember going to a dinner party with all these divorced women, mm-hmm. and listening to the story around the table. And the story was really full of bitterness and anger and grief because they hadn't healed. And I thought, I don't want to be that embittered person when I get done. I was certainly embittered going through the divorce. I was angry and shattered and in so much grief. But so that's when I really made that inner commitment to do whatever I needed to do with all my spiritual and psychological skill sets to heal myself as much as I could, because my intention was to get out of the divorce and have a brand new, brilliant second half of life.
Yes. Yes.
So my mantra was I choose to be free, happy, and love. And it was really what that commitment to myself, to learn to love and respect myself. And the day I could tell myself that I'm really a pretty good person was astonishing, you know, and I was in my early 50s at this point. So to go 50 years and not love yourself, you know, that's kind of, I don't go there. I don't rewind into, wow, you know, that's really sad. It's just like, wow. And now I do.
Yes. And what you're offering, especially for women, if someone's kind of in that space where they are at a point where they're realizing they're not loving themselves, what things do you offer them that could help them?
So when I have a few clients right now, one's divorced, two are going through divorce, one was contemplating divorce, and all of them have no self-esteem. And it's interesting because until they sat with me, they didn't actually realize they didn't have self-esteem. And one of my clients affirmed to me this last time we worked together, she said, I love, respect, and trust myself. This is a woman who was so scared about going through divorce and didn't know where the money was going to come from, didn't, you know, thought her life dream was shattered, right? And now this woman stands up for herself. She's learning how to speak up for herself, and she loves and trusts herself. And those are her words, and she respects herself. And you know, I'm always just so humbled when that embodiment of self-love and self-esteem happens. And so when I work with people, every session that I do is intuitively crafted, which means that as they're talking, oh my God, I haven't spoken this out in public. Because I am an intuitive, I listen on several levels. And often during a session, I will hear that there is a guided meditation that I can create in the moment for them that will help them face, let go of, forgive, all that stuff, and open up new windows of possibility so they can move forward in life. And so that often happens. You know, how that happens, you know, it just does. But the thing also is I am a big believer about working affirmations, and I don't mean using an affirmation like a Band-Aid. A lot of people in the transformational world talk about affirmations, you know, and life's all good. Well, life isn't all good. There's some dark and ugly, and it all has to be blended, right, into a beautiful landscape. And so working affirmations for me is about taking an affirmation and embodying it. And sometimes you have to do that by moving, you know, walking and saying the affirmation. Sometimes you have to do it as the anger or the fear comes up and work through that. I have a whole bunch of tools that I've put into Live Your Inspired Life, Live an Inspired Life, a 30-day journey, because I feel like I wanted everybody to have enough skills that when, like you said earlier, when they're done with that 30-day journey, they have a toolbox, they have a way to continue their own spiritual path.
Yes. And as you're working with people and they're loving themselves now, they're getting confidence, because part of it is just confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
How do you help them to go from that love to actually action? Okay, so I loving myself, and now I have a goal. And that, like the person you're talking about, that she's coming out of divorce, she doesn't know where the money's coming from, or where does she start. How do you help them start moving in that direction?
Well, it's interesting because this particular client, she's had amazing, beautiful, scary practice points while we've been working together. She had to have a conversation with an accountant and a lawyer on her mother's behalf, and somebody else was running that conversation. And so we had an entire session creating questions she needed to ask, and I prompted her to call the lawyer ahead of time just to do research, not to make decisions, but to find out what really was going on. And so when she went to that meeting, finally, she did do that action. And when she went to that meeting, it turned out better than she could have imagined, because she was informed, right? And when we don't have a lot of self-esteem, we don't think to ask the question. We're more the victim, right? We're more at the effect. And so with her just making that phone call and asking the questions that were uncomfortable to her, she's now built a muscle. And so she's doing more of that in her workplace. She's doing more of that while she's completing this divorce, calling the other lawyer, asking the questions, just to be informed. She's learning now how to take care of her own finances, which she's never done her entire life. So there's definitely action steps, but when in all that I've seen with different clients, it depends on how ready the individual is to transform. And I don't mean that in an airy-fairy way. I mean it, how willing are they to invest in themselves, commit to themselves, their own interpersonal spiritual growth, as well as their esteem growth, because all of that goes out into the world we live in, and I say it radiates out, and then draws to you the right circumstances. It draws to you the right people, the right job. You don't have to stay in a dead end job where you've hit the ceiling of your income, but you have to have that inner connection to self-love and self-esteem in order to make those changes.
Yes. And what you said about the questions actually was an aha for me, because just by her asking the questions and asking the appropriate questions for the information she needs, it put her at cause over every situation. It puts her at cause, because the person asking the questions usually is the person in control.
Yes, that's a great point.
So by just teaching her to ask the appropriate questions, it empowered her, and it got her thinking, probably took her from that victim mindset to, okay, I'm the person in control over here, and what other questions can I ask? And it has her busy over in this other space, thinking about how to solve problems rather than in the victim space. And that just became very apparent to me as you were talking.
Yeah, it's interesting as you said that. I had another client who would spend the first, 15 minutes of our session running her story, right? We all run a story. We're driving down the freeway and we look over and there's somebody in the car. We start a story. It's like, I don't know why we do that, just to keep us occupied. And her story would often spin down into this victim hole, and then I would spend the rest of the session pulling her back up and reflecting to her and reminding her. And after a few sessions like that, she kind of woke up and went, oh, that's a story. Yeah, I don't want that story anymore. Good. I can have a different story. Yes, you can. But sometimes we have to spin in the story for a while until we realize it's just a story.
Yes. It's all made up.
all made up, and we're so powerful beings. We can make up anything.
Mm-hmm.
I choose to make up a life of freedom and happiness and empowerment now. It took a long time for me to realize that that is what I could have.
Mm-hmm. And as I'm listening to you, what I'm hearing is the word choose over and over and over again.
Yeah, choose.
So you're choosing it, and you have a goal in mind. You're choosing something, and you're always going towards something. And that has you going towards the next level, even the one you don't know is there yet.
Right, right.
That is empowering. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about the book and how people would use the book and the tools? And
okay, wait, hold on. Here it is. So here it is. That's the cover.
mm-hmm.
I love the cover. I love the red. And being a redhead, I always avoided red. So now everything, my branding is red. I think it's hysterical.
Yeah.
It's a 30-day journey book. And the way that I teach, I've come to a point in my life, where I only take on clients that are ready to change. I only work in classrooms. When I'm teaching, I tell everybody the first meeting, if you're not ready to dive deep and really transform, then you don't need to be here, because I'm no longer, I had an awakening last year in a mastermind group I was in that I was carrying everybody's burden. And I think women tend to do that, right? So I realized, somebody said, you're being a Sherpa to everybody. I was like, oh, so that became my new mantra. I am not your Sherpa. You do the inner work. So this is a 30-day journey for people that are committed to doing the inner work. And which is I crafted it so that there's a bit of a dive deep, and then you come into some gentleness with affirmations, and then you dive deep again. And there's videos that are on my website to teach and support you. There's guided meditations that you can access through Insight Timer that help support you. And so pretty much I'm there every step of the way. When you do the work and interact with the website, you'll see me, hear me, and all that stuff. So that because I don't want people to feel like they're doing this by themselves. It's a great 30-day inner retreat that you don't have to go anywhere. You can do it from your own home and then get on with your day, kind of thing. But can I read something from this?
Please.
Okay, so I broke it into sections about rebuilding your trust and your life purpose, and then also journeying into receptivity, since we were talking about receiving. And that's toward the end, because in my personal experience of having done this work for myself, I realized I had to excavate all the garbage, take the big boulders and get rid of them and all that stuff, so that I could become receptive to what the universe and life was really calling me to do and be. So this is journey to rebuilding trust within yourself, because a lot of people, myself included, even though I meditate and teach this stuff, I don't trust easily. I learned that. Mm-hmm. And so my work is constantly about reminding myself to trust. So here's what I said about that. Journey to rebuilding trust within yourself. Let's face it, life is a journey. When you've lived it long enough, the bumps and grinds wear you down and can even be painful. We begin to doubt ourselves based on past mistakes or other people's critical judgment. It becomes harder and harder to trust the choices we make. Harder to trust we are doing the right thing, are in the right place, are in right relationship with people who love us no matter what. The journey to living an empowered life requires inner excavation and being honest with what you find. In becoming more truthful with yourself, you begin to build that bridge to self-trust, and therefore trusting the universe more and all the beauty and wonder it has to offer you. So when I started, I have chills because there's an affirmation that follows that. When I started my divorce, the day after I made the 3:00 in the morning decision that it was done and I was probably going to need to file, I went and got a massage. You know, I was trying to really take care of myself. And the masseuse had Deepak Chopra on, and he was running affirmations. And so I laid down, I put my face in the, you know, the cradle of the massage thing, and I hear, I trust the unknown. I was like, oh crap. Well, actually I used a stronger word, but, and then it said, I relinquished the known. I was like, oh, I'm in deep doo-doo. And I opened myself to infinite possibilities. And so for an hour, that was running, you know, I mean, I was getting a deep massage. So it went into my cells, you know. Yeah. I trust the unknown. I relinquish the known. I open to infinite possibilities. The day after I decided to go into divorce. Now, is that a cosmic joke or what?
That is.
Isn't it? I think it's hysterical. So I'm glad you're laughing because, oh, yeah, right. So when I am really big about, if you're going to do it, just do it, right? Yes. And a lot of us, myself included, I do a lot of resistance. I used to say my heels were just brown and dirty because I would dig them in and say, no, I'm not going. You can't make me. And that's usually my knee-jerk reaction. Is my first answer is, no, I'm not doing that. Don't tell me. I'm not doing it. And then eventually my resistance wears down, you know, because the universe keeps pushing or gently shoving or pointing. Mm-hmm. And then when I say yes and I make the commitment, the ride is astonishing. And I think a lot of us are, I know I was, when I started my own empowerment journey, because I was in divorce and my life was shattered, I was really afraid of what I would find within myself. You know, I was really afraid to uncover the truth of myself because I had never dug that deep. I circled around it. And I remember earlier circling around this inner stuff that was kind of mucky because I'd never looked, thinking, oh my God, and when I open up that box, you know, I'm going to find stuff I don't want, and I'm really not going to like myself. Yes. And that happens to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. And what happened when you opened the box?
Well, what happened is, so I saw it more as these coats I had on, you know, all these different trench coats that had covered me in just muck. And so I thought, and I'm really, when I do my own inner work, I visualize it, right? So I was seeing myself pulling off these coats that had all this yucky stuff from my ex-husband, you know, and all this ugly stuff. And I remember one day I was in my kitchen and I was feeling my shoulders I was so anxious and I'm like, and I felt horrible inside. And I'm like, okay, what is that? What is that? So I sat down with myself. I'm like, all right, let's figure this one out. And I realized it was shame. I felt huge buckets of shame that were, when I sat down and I started to kind of visualize, what is that? It was really sticky. And I saw myself like in this room, just with buckets and buckets of shame, sticky, ooey gooey that was all over the walls and all over me. And I thought, okay, I don't even know what the shame was connected to. It could have been ancestral shame, or shame that I'd stayed 28 years in a marriage that really probably didn't work from the beginning. But so I sat and I just began to use my breath and light. I work with a lot of light to clear the room, that little room I was in my mind with the shame, and just clarifying and washing the walls clean, you know, until there was no shame, not even in the corners. You know, I didn't want any sticky residue of shame. And, you know, that process took me maybe 15 minutes when I sat to do it. But the coming to it was fearful because, you know, and I think a lot of people, sometimes it's important to know what the shame's connected to. But in my experience, sometimes you don't need to know what it's connected to. You just need to recognize it's there. I had this mantra from my 20s. Look at what you fear and see, it disappears instantly. So the minute we face the thing we think we fear, we can transmute it, or it just goes away. It's just, and that's what was happening with the shame that day. It just wanted to get my attention and say, look, this is another piece you've got to excavate and clear. And I really believe that when we do this kind of inner work, we get to choose. We're going back to the choice point again, Kimberly. We get to choose. Do I want to keep that piece? Some people want to hang on to the thing that the shame or the guilt because it's so comfortable. Mm-hmm. But I'm here to tell everybody, if you're willing to let it go, if you're willing to do a deep inner work of clearing, getting rid of that guilt as much as you can, or that shame, or that anger, or that resentment, opens up a pathway to an amazing life, because that's been my experience. I've lived it. So, yeah.
Wow, that was amazing. And what you said about that quote from your 20s or whatever, when you just look at the fear, it disappears.
Yeah.
That was an aha for me. Oh, right. Just look it right in the eyes. You need to go.
Yeah.
You need to go.
Yeah.
So, but so it sounds to me like when someone actually buys your book, they get the book, but then they get you because you have all the videos on your website. They get those meditations and helpful links for that. And it sounds to me like for the price of a book, they're getting a whole program.
Oh my God.
They are getting a whole program.
They are. Actually, they are, Kimberly. I've gone on so many spiritual retreats where you're in the middle of the retreat and you're like, oh, this feels so good. I want to experience this forever. My life has changed. And then you come home to life and the life is still there,
Yes.
The husband sitting on the couch, not doing anything, the dishes in the sink or whatever it is, So I really wanted this book to be a place of support for people that choose to do the work, and ongoing support if they choose to do that. In fact, I'm I want to develop support circles, small community circles, where individuals can do a book study with a group, mm-hmm. And support each other. And we're going to be doing that on Zoom, starting in January, probably. I need to get the book out there to people. But there may be some in-person circles that we start as well, mm-hmm. so that individuals that want to do the book get supported during it. And then after the book is done, they still get support, because the circles will be, at least the way I teach, they always become an ongoing circle. I've developed 4 different support circles in my life. And one circle went for 10 years, a small group of women, mm-hmm. empowering each other. Another circle went 8, another 3, because that heart connection. And when you share from that deep place of vulnerability of whatever it is that's up for you. And I notice this, well, it's true for everybody, but I mostly work with women, and women want to hold that circle. They want to hold that container for each other, because that's what we used to do in ancient days,
Yes, it is. And when you talk about the circle, I think about just the really deep connections that people are making with each other. And I think that that's one of the things that's missing more and more today, is that, we have social media, but it's not a deep connection, not really. And even in our busy lives, I know even with my best friends, we have to actually schedule time. We have to schedule time. So to have that deep connection with a group of people for 10 years is a gift. It's a gift.
It was, because then after a couple of years, then we're holding each other's memories, right?
Mm.
I remember when you were going through that, and look how you came through it, and you're better off because, you know, that those stories then become the empowering stories. I got chills again. It's just, and really, this is my opinion. I give my opinion freely, Kimberly, but I think that as human beings, that's why we're here on the planet. We're not here to be on a device pretending like we're having an amazing life because I'm texting you what I ate tonight, or here's my selfie at the moon, or, you know, we're here to have this kind of a connection, of a heart-to-heart connection. And when we recognize each other, it means that we're really honoring the divine within each of us. That I use, you know, namaste has become kind of everybody knows it. Everybody says it. I don't know if everybody knows what it means, but I use it to close out my podcasts because I want individuals that are listening to know that even though I can't see them, I recognize the divine in them.
Yes.
As well as the heart connection within me. So, and I think that that's the whole reason why we're here on planet Earth, going through all the mishigosh, all the economic, political, environmental stuff. It's so that we as individuals can connect to each other and then connect globally. And it takes in-person time.
Yes, it takes one-on-one in-person time and groups of people who are close and connected to expand out and make a difference.
Yeah.
So, and you're definitely making that difference.
Oh, thank you. I hope so. I really do.
So if, I know your book's coming out soon. It's not out yet, right? It's coming out when?
Our actual launch is going to be September 13th.
Okay.
Where my amazing web designer and friend who formatted the book, and she's just been working her tail off, is getting the Amazon paperwork and all that stuff lined up so that people can buy the book on Amazon, or the publisher and fulfiller is Verbante. So there'll be two ways to get it. If you buy it on Amazon, I understand, it begins to push the book to the bestseller list. And so I would be deeply grateful if individuals did that, because then it gets out to more people. And that's my vision, is that this work goes out to more people, you know, especially the people that are in need of really finding how to live their own empowered life.
Yes. And if people want to contact you, what's the best way?
Oh, they can do that through my website, susanburrell.com. There's a contact button, and you can write me a question or something like that, and I'll get back to you.
Right. And there's information about when that book launches. You're going to put that on the website, right?
Oh, yeah. It's already, actually, the homepage is already kind of that. There's a book trailer that it's just, I'm so enamored with it, because it turned out beautiful in terms of expressing what the book's about. And you can watch that and then begin to, you'll see within the next 2 weeks, all the information about how to buy the book will be there.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today, and for the huge difference you're making in the world and helping women to actually love themselves and become empowered and go out into the world and make a difference. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate the work that you're doing. And you have a lovely, lovely energy. Thank you for stepping out and doing this work.
All right. Thanks. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay. I hope so.